Hi, I'm John DeVries and welcome to BlackRock Mining's March 2020 update. Normally I'd be out on the street trying to talk to people individually, but things have changed and we're now social distancing and using video as an alternative. What we wanted to do in this presentation is go back and start to talk to people about the lessons we've learnt on the 3 years that we've been developing Mahangi and try put those lessons into some sort of context so that our strategy in developing the project is a lot more visible and a lot more transparent. So what I'd like to do now is take you through the slide deck and just talk through that slide deck and how it all comes together. The deck itself is in three parts. There's a short part at the front that I'll be talking to, and then there's two appendices at the back that has a bit more information. So we'll slip into the deck. So if we were just to summarise BlackRock in a single slide, you can see we're an ASX-listed graphite development company. It's pretty important. We're no longer an explorer, we're a developer. We have 100% of the Mahangi Graphite project in Tanzania. What really starts to come out here is the mineral resource. We're ranked number 4 globally in terms of tonnes and number 2 globally in terms of reserve. And these are fairly important in terms of how we interpret our strategy. The project itself is very long life, a 26-year reserve life plus material outside of reserve, and we have outstanding economics, an MPV at the moment in Australian dollars well in excess of $1.6 billion. And importantly, we've walked the project up where it's now construction ready, subject to completing the Resettlement Action Plan, or RAP, putting in place financing, and the Tanzanian government coming to and explaining how we work the 16% free carried interest. BlackRock is a little different in terms of our leadership in that we have people who have got the right skills that we need to develop the company. I'm a mining engineer, I've been around for about 35 years, and as I say, the only place I haven't developed a mine yet is Antarctica. Richard Crooks, our chairman. Richard's a mine finance professional and a geologist. Richard's ex-Macquarie Bank, ex-EMR Capital, and has really stepped up and helped us enormously as we move into the financing stage of the project. Ian Murray, a recent acquisition for us on the board, but critically, Ian has come from being head of Gold Road Resources, and he's taken that company from a $10 million company to well over $1 billion. So Ian's actually in the position where you can say, here's one we prepared earlier. And Gabriel Chipini, our company secretary, Gabe's been around West Perth for a long time and knows how to get things done. So, we've got people with the right skills to make this work. The other critical person in the team is Raymond Hakima in Tanzania. Raymond runs our business over there, and Raymond is just phenomenal at getting stuff done. So if we turn around and we look at, we've got a mining license in 4 months, we've got an exploration environmental licensing in 3 months. That's Raymond's work, and anybody who's been with Raymond will understand he is a dynamo, an absolutely fantastic guy to have on the team. So the difference we have is we've got a team with the right skills, knowledge and experience. So what have we learnt in the last 3 years? Well, we've learnt that industrial minerals, and particularly graphite, it's customer driven, it's not commodity driven. And that really throws us into a bunch of really different approaches that we need to think about this. Firstly, the terminal markets we deal with are relatively small, and that is the scales, pursuing economies of scales would disrupt the markets and can be really counterproductive. The other thing we find is little intermediation. If you were to look at a gold mine or a copper mine, at a mine level, you could assume the terminal markets are infinitely large, and that's not the case in a graphite mine. Ultimately, there's little intermediation, so you don't have any hedging, which means you really need to be careful about your capital costs. The other thing that we've learnt is entry size is absolutely critical. You need to be small enough to be fundable, but large enough to be meaningful and investable, and that really comes back to not overcapitalising the asset, not making it too big, not making it too small. Ultimately, it's the Goldilocks impact of mine design. The other thing we've learnt is the product goes into specific use manufactured markets, and that is we're producing a product here, not a commodity. And products come with specifications, and if you miss those specifications, you're either making product or you're making waste. And that really comes back to how you set up your plant, and that is most of us from a base metal or gold background will start our mill up and we'll creep it up the performance curve, and it may take 6 to 9 months to settle a mill down. In an industrial mineral, you're either making waste or you're making product, which means there is no creep up. You need to hit your numbers on day one. And that gets back to what do you do with off-spec material. If you have a fire sale of off-spec material, effectively you'll destroy your brand and you'll destroy your price point. So your mill needs to be designed to have re-entry points so that you can reprocess off-spec material. And the mill we've designed at Mahenge has two things with it. It has 4 separate re-entry points, and it has a fairly high level of automation so that we can ensure the mill runs consistently all the time. Sampling is a real challenge in graphite. We typically sample for resource and reserve estimation, and most of us are reasonably familiar how to do that with a gold or a base metal project. In graphite, not only do you need to sample for your volume estimation or your tons, but you need to actually sample to ensure your products meet specification. And that drives a fairly different strategy, and that's really the logic behind the 2 pilot plants that we've run, the 90-ton pilot plant in Canada and the subsequent 20-ton pilot plant in China. Was all about demonstrating that the ore body could actually produce products that our customers want. And finally, when you put all that together, is the financing requires a lot of preparation. And in our case, the financing started with the definitive feasibility study and the pilot plant. So we're not walking into the financing process now. We effectively started our finance process around about 2 years ago. So if we look at what have we learnt, we've talked a bit about what we've learnt. The question we now put this to is, how have we done this? So if we look at what we've delivered to date, we've delivered the largest pilot plant run of any graphite development company. We doubled down on that. We did that twice, 90 tonnes in Canada, 20 tonnes in China. We've delivered the highest grade graphite concentrate at a commercial scale, and we did that through simple flotation. And that was a massive, massive achievement, really allowed us to reposition our product in the market. We've got a portfolio of credible off-takers. The people we're dealing with in the off-take market are people who are part of the graphite business 24/7. So we're dealing with people who have real businesses. We've managed to take them through a detailed off-take pricing framework. So we've got a framework agreed on how we're going to price our material. And that's fundamental in terms of being able to finance the project. And we've really right-sized that profile, and the modular scalability of the plant, where we go module 1, 2, 3 and 4, is all about making sure that we don't overcapitalise the market too quickly. We've really taken that further now. We've completed an EPC framework agreement with a state-owned enterprise, China Railway 7th Group, and that's fundamental because effectively, if you think about, we have a Chinese equipment supplier, we have a Chinese EPC company, we have Chinese customers. I think you get a good idea about which banks we're talking to for finance. And finally, is in terms of Tanzania, we've got the environmental approval in place, we've got the mining licenses granted, and we're now working with government to resolve how we put together the 16% free carried interest. You can see just in that timeline there, we've just steadily worked through these things and just put in place individual pieces of the puzzle as we move forward. So if we pack that all together, and what does Mahenge look like? 1.2 billion US NPV in Australian, that's somewhere between 1.6 and 1.8 billion, depending on which week we look at it. 45% IRR ungeared, an 83,000 tonne a year production rate out of module 1. That's pretty important because we talk about not overcapitalising your market size, because most, our material's half flake, half fines. Effectively, we're only bringing on a 40,000 tonne a year fines project, which will sell itself, and then we've got a 43,000 tonne flake project, which I think everybody agrees with that flake market is in severe deficit and quite easily to sell itself. Put that together, we come up with 4 modules, 350,000 tonne a year. Take us a couple of years to get there. Basket price of $1,300 a tonne. That may seem high in today's environment, but it is at 98%, and it is for material that's over half of it is flake. So it's quite a reasonable basket price at 98%, and given the flake size. All-in sustaining cost, just under $500 a tonne, and that's really a function of the fact we've got access to road, rail, we've got access to port, and that's all about keeping our costs down. And, at the moment, a 26-year mine life, and we could probably add to that if we were to drill some holes, but we'll solve that problem in a few years' time. So what's the difference here? And the difference we've done is we've done the heavy commercial work. It's about building our knowledge base of the project so we fully understand our value proposition, and that's how we can take to our customers and to our financiers. So we look at this, and first thing we learn is, graphite is not homogeneous. And what you need to do is blend into your plant to make sure you are homogeneous. So we've really done the work to understand how that deposit varies across the deposit and the impact that has on our process parameters and the impact it has on our different product streams. And it's been done at scale. This is not a lab test. This is 2 pilot plants, 110 tonnes in total. We did the 90-tonne plant in Canada, and we did the 18-tonne plant in China. And the important bit about that is, we repeated the experiment and we got the same outcome. And that gives us a lot of comfort around the value proposition of our product. Taking that into the manufacturing chain, 400 kilograms spheronized, we got a yield of 48 to 53%, and that's in a world where most of our peer suppliers in China are effectively achieving 30% yield. So that's a massive value proposition for our customers. And then we've taken that early on, completed 300 cycle batteries, battery charge, discharge, and that's, again, just demonstrates the efficacy of the product. So this is real commercial work done at scale to demonstrate the value of the project. Ultimately, in a project, one of the things you need to look at is what is the legacy that you wish to leave behind. In our case, we want to leave a small footprint but have a large positive impact. And that means we talk about a whole of community engagement. We're talking about leaving skills that last beyond the project. And, a really good example of our approach is the village office opening, which we had in early February in Tanzania. This is about actually empowering the people on our project area, the people we need to work with, our immediate stakeholders, empowering them to step up and take a greater participation in the project. And that's been incredibly well received, as evidence that we had the Minister of Mines turn up to open those offices. So you think about this, we're in the Resettlement Action Plan at the moment. That's working really, really well. Incredibly positive feedback. We've got people there who want the project to proceed. So I think that's a very significant step. And again, that talks to the capacity of our people on the ground in Tanzania to engage with the community and to maintain a positive dialogue. Our logistics, we've got a road-rail combination that direct access to the port, and that reduces vehicle risks. It reduces the probability of vehicle-villager interaction on the way, but importantly, it leverages national infrastructure that's already in place. Energy, we've got access to low-cost hydro grid power. Now, that really starts to come into its own when we talk about what's the overall carbon footprint of the project. If we're using hydro power instead of power coming from a diesel power station, that really starts to give the overall credits, the carbon credits for the project. And, even the ultimate dry stack residue disposal, I think that's something we're personally very proud of, and that means we don't have a wet dam. So we don't have the sort of failure, the dramatic failures that we've seen elsewhere of wet dam. But importantly, we're not competing with our local stakeholders for water. The site's pretty much self-contained for water over the dry season. And dry stacking, the approach we're doing, leads to long-term chemical stability. So there's no long-term negative environmental trail. So you get a sense that we're taking this as a holistic project view. So if we think about graphite market dynamics, and we're really the right company in the right position for where the market's going. Electrification of transport is going to go ahead. Obviously, the market at the moment is a little challenged, but long-term macroeconomics suggest electrification of transport is going to just continue to move ahead. Government policy is really pushing in two directions. Firstly, it's pushing for the electrification of transport, and secondly, we're starting to see people get a strong desire to diversify their supply chain. And obviously, the Mahenge has a real role to play in that. Battery standards, lithium-ion battery, ultimately it's the low-cost battery in the electrification business, and that's a long-term competitive advantage. There probably are better batteries out there, but they cost a lot more, and most people are just going to be fundamentally focused on low-cost batteries. Talking about clean source, and this is our cradle-to-grave approach of low chemical impurities in our product, low carbon footprint, and we think that ultimately is a competitive advantage. Mega factories, we are really looking at a lot of new battery factories in the pipeline. They're in construction or they're being planned at the moment. And all these factories are going to need material, going to need graphite to make batteries. So we sort of see the long-term advantage in this. Battery technology, while we're seeing new and better batteries emerge, these batteries, the new batteries, tend to be focusing on altering the electrolyte chemistry. At the end of the day, it would appear that graphite is going to be the anode of choice for at least the next 10 to 15 years, and that positions BlackRock in a really, really unique position. So, right mine, right product, right place. So we pack and wrap that. This is BlackRock and the Mahenge project. Look, we think it is the world's best undeveloped graphite project. It's a simple project, and it's a simple open pit with a simple mill. We're differentiated because we have leading product purity, and we have got residual chemistry that really supports low-cost battery precursor material. We've got a fantastic location in terms of logistics and power. We've got the right approach to work with our financiers to put in place a risk position that they can understand and are happy to work with. Certainly we've got realistic and transparent pricing outlook, and importantly that's been validated because we've got customers and off-takers standing in there who have agreed to a pricing framework. We're the only people in the market who can talk about our pricing framework. And importantly, at the end of the day, we're here for the long haul, so we are responsible with our stakeholder engagement, and it's really coming together as the long-term plan of the project. So that's our very short presentation. Like I said, I'd love to be talking to people individually about it, but sign of the times that isn't going to happen. But if you want to know more about it, please reach out to me via email or my phone number, and I'm happy to take you through this. So this is John de Vries from BlackRock Mining. Stay safe out there, and we hope to talk to you soon.